Have you ever wanted to learn something really complex, like picking up a new language or finally learning how to code, but you just felt completely and totally overwhelmed? Well, it turns out that mastering a skill like that, it isn't magic. It's actually a process, one that we can understand, we can deconstruct, and yeah, even engineer. And it all kicks off by asking one simple but really powerful question.
I want you to really let that sink in for a second. What if your ability to learn isn't some fixed thing you were born with? What if it's more like a system? A system that you, yes you, have the power to design and build for yourself. That is the huge idea we're going to unpack today.
Okay, so every single learning journey starts right here. You've got the dream of this amazing new skill on one side, and then inevitably, you hit a wall. It happens to all of us. But the real question is, what is that wall actually made of?
And here's the big reveal. For almost all of us, that wall, it isn't built out of a lack of smarts. It's not an intellectual problem. It's built from things like fear, anxiety, and a serious crisis of confidence. The obstacles, believe it or not, are emotional.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because there's a name for this barrier. It's called the affective filter. Just think of it like an invisible shield. When you feel anxious or you're not feeling confident, that shield goes up. And it doesn't matter how great the teacher is or how clear the information is, it just bounces right off. It can't get through to the part of your brain that actually does the learning.
So what puts that shield up in the first place? Well, it's this cocktail of really specific, really human fears. There's the fear of just making a mistake. Then there's the fear of being judged or ridiculed for that mistake. And of course, that little voice in your head that whispers, "I'm just bad at this." All of that leads to the ultimate enemy of getting anything done, being so paralyzed by perfectionism that you just don't even start.
But here is the good news. If we can understand the problem, that means we can find a solution. And there is a blueprint for breaking through that wall. And it's actually modeled on the most natural learning process that every single one of us has already done.
And this, right here, this is the core idea. Learning a technical skill, like the programming language Python, is almost identical, cognitively speaking, to learning a human language like English. I mean, think about it. They both have vocabulary, words versus keywords and functions. They both have grammar, or syntax, the rules about word order, or in code, indentation. And they both have semantics, the underlying logic of what it all means. Seeing it this way, it changes everything.
So using this language model, we can actually start to put some numbers on the learning journey. Just look at this data from the U.S. Foreign Service Institute. To get to a professional level in a language that's pretty close to English, like Spanish, you're looking at about 750 hours of effort. But for a language like Japanese, which is structurally very different, it's almost 4 times that. It's not just about learning more words. You're building a totally new mental framework from the ground up.
And here's a really crucial heads up. This journey is not a straight line. It's actually pretty easy to get to that intermediate stage where you know the basics. But then you hit a plateau. And pushing through that plateau to get to advanced, that takes a massive, disproportionate amount of time and effort. Just knowing that this is part of the process is so key to managing your own expectations and not giving up.
Okay, so if we know the barriers are emotional, and we know the path is going to get really tough, how do we actually push through? Well, it all comes down to a specific psychological turning point, a fundamental shift in your mindset.
This quote from Art Williams just nails it. It perfectly captures the sequence. It gives you permission to be a beginner. It validates that initial phase of just, frankly, being bad at something. It reframes it. It's not a failure. It's a mandatory, non-negotiable step on the path to being great. You have to be bad first. And this little phrase right here is maybe the most important part of this whole thing. It's the emotional instruction manual. It's about acknowledging, okay, right now I'm in the bad phase, and then immediately telling yourself, and that's not bad. It's a conscious command to lower that affective filter we talked about and just let the learning happen.
Psychologists have a term for this. They call it a growth mindset. It's the core belief that your abilities are not set in stone. It's the deep down understanding that when you struggle, that's just your brain growing stronger, and that mistakes, they aren't a judgment on you. They're not a verdict. They are simply data points, valuable information you can use to get better.
So how do you actually do it? Well, you have to actively, consciously reframe your inner voice. So when that thought pops up, I made a mistake, I'm so stupid, you stop it and you replace it with, great, I just found a gap in my knowledge I can fix. Or when you feel this is just too hard, you reframe it to, okay, this is challenging, which means my brain is literally growing right now. This mindset is the foundation. So now let's build the right place to practice it.
All right, once you've got that growth mindset locked in, you need a safe place to put it into action. You need a personal training ground, a sort of lab where you can be bad at something without any of that fear of judgment.
You know, the absolute best kind of practice is immersion, just surrounding yourself with the skill. There's incredible research from Georgetown University that showed that when adults learn through immersion, it doesn't just teach them, it physically rewires their brain to process the new skill just like a native speaker would. It is, hands down, the most powerful learning method we have.
But let's be honest, real-world immersion can be terrifying, right? This is where modern AI tutors completely change the game. They create what is essentially a digital immersion chamber. It's a place for anxiety-free practice. You get instant, private feedback from a partner that is available 24/7 and, most importantly, is completely non-judgmental. It systematically takes apart every single fear we talked about at the beginning.
So you've embraced the struggle. You've practiced in your safe space. You're getting good. There's just one final step in this whole architecture that takes you from being a pretty good learner to a true master of the skill.
This quote pretty much sets up the ultimate test. The truest measure of whether you understand something isn't just if you can do it, it's whether you can explain it simply to someone else.
The Feynman technique gives us this beautiful four-step process for doing exactly that. First, you just pretend to teach a concept to someone new. This immediately shows you where the holes in your own understanding are. So, step 2, you identify those gaps. Step 3, you go back to the books, to the source material, and you fill only those gaps. And finally, step 4, you simplify your explanation, you create analogies until it's so clear that a child could get it.
And this, right here, is the final transformative shift. The act of teaching, even if you're just pretending, completes the whole learning cycle. It moves you from being a passive consumer of information into being an active producer of knowledge. And that's what really cements the skill in your long-term memory for good.
So, you see, the journey from novice to expert isn't some big mystery. It's an engineered process. It has an architecture. And now you have the blueprint. You've got the mindset, you've got the tools, and you have the techniques. So the only question left is, what will you build?